We're here today to celebrate the memory of Kenneth James Bly. He was a father, he was a brother, he was a grandfather, he was our friend, and this was his church. And we're going to miss him.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode on day 24, we're going to look at Summer's grandfather's death 6 weeks before her disappearance. So the plot continues to thicken in the Summer Wells case. Do you think they've developed a person of interest? Do you think the TBI have found someone that they think could be involved? On May 5th, 2021, just less than 6 weeks before Summer disappeared, her 85-year-old grandfather on her mother's side, Ken Bly, passed away. In this episode, we're going to look at the obituary. We're going to verify that this Ken was indeed Candy's ex-husband, and we're going to look at the implications of his death and finally examine a few incidental intertextualities. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please do. You can click on the light blue icon on the bottom right of your screen, like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So in terms of confirmation, it turned out to be surprisingly easy. I found this funeral service on Facebook, which confirms the military affiliations in the obituary, and incidentally, Candace Hara, Ken's ex-wife, and Candace Bly's mother commented on the actual stream service on Facebook. It was streamed probably as a possible consequence of coronavirus precautions, and so as a result, we've been able to verify this pretty easily. There's also further support that Ken Bly is Summer's grandfather, not that we need it, and Candace's father from the obituary itself, because Candace, his daughter, is mentioned in it, even though Candace, his ex-wife, isn't. Now, I'm not sure whether ex-wives and husbands are typically mentioned at funerals. Let's listen into some of the commentary that occurred at the funeral.
Well, I have known Jim since his kids were knee-high to a grasshopper. And he used to come over to my house all the time. That was when he was married to Candace. And he'd bring the kids over and they'd throw snowballs at Walt. We used to have a lot of weenie roast out there, and oh my gosh, he was so funny, the things that he used to say to me. And then when he'd start singing something, I would finish the song, because he'd say, "I can't carry a tune. I can't sing." I said, "Yes, you can." And then he'd go on and on and on. Am I right? He loved to sing, but he was afraid he wasn't good enough. And he used to come to my house quite a bit. We'd sit and have coffee. I've seen him laugh, and I've seen him cry. Seriously. And I'm going to miss him, because I just loved him to pieces. He was there when Larry left us, and he was actually the only friend that I had, except for Kitty Cat over there. When Larry passed away, Jim was there for me. And I just want to let everybody know that he was an absolute wonderful, wonderful guy.
Now, you can listen to the rest of the funeral service on Facebook. I will provide a link to that in the description. So going to the obituary, it refers to Ken, often known as Jim, born on the 6th of December 1935 in Springfield, Massachusetts. From there he moved to Connecticut, and most recently he's been a long-time resident of Grantsburg, I think that's Wisconsin. Now, I think there's quite a lot that resides just in those places, in being from those places. Certain places give you a sense of psychology, a sense of who you are, a sense of identity. He enjoyed fishing, playing pool, and being with family. He served in the United States Army and worked various jobs. Ken loved to tell jokes and was well known for his sense of humor and quick wit. Ken has left behind 5 children: Kathleen, Kenneth, Candace, Jeannie, and Rosie, as well as his sister Geraldine Hens and several grandchildren. So what does this information mean? What can we take out of it? What can we take from the information that Ken brings to the story? Well, I think in Ken Bly's obituary, what stands out are A, that he was a military man, B, that he was something of a joker, and C, that Candace has 5 siblings, or 4 if we subtract Rosie. Now, the fact that he was a military man means there's a particular psychology that comes from being in the military. There's a sense of regimentation. There's a sense of almost do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. There's a sense of discipline and no nonsense parenting, I guess. But there's something that is attached to military families that is not necessarily attached to other families. And sometimes what that can be is trauma and suffering and struggle. And the other thing is him being something of a joker. I think one gets that sense from Candace, from her own self-deprecating sense of humor in her selfies and in what she puts on Facebook, what she puts on TikTok as well. As there's something surprising about it, the vitality in it, the angle, in terms of the music, the gangster sort of angle. It's quite funny in a way. There seems to be a bit of a sense of humor in it. And then I think the other aspect is that Candace has 5 siblings. And so we see in her own family, there are 4 children. So she's obviously used to a fairly big family. And it's also 4 in terms of the real number of her siblings, reduced to 4 if we subtract Rosie, right? And now it's 3 siblings if we subtract Summer. Now, I think it's interesting, we haven't really heard anything from her siblings, and we had something similar in the Barry Morphew case. We didn't really hear much from Suzanne's siblings for a while, and then eventually we did. So one wonders how long it's going to take for them to say anything, to stand up for anything. We also didn't see Ken in the short documentary dealing with Rosie's disappearance, the one that came out 2 years ago in 2019 when Ken would have been 83. One wonders about that. Didn't he have something to say about Rosie? If he did have something to say, why didn't he say it? Why didn't we hear from him? Ken's death less than 2 months before Summer's disappearance may have added to the psychological preparation I referred to previously. Now bear in mind, it can be unconscious. You can be psychologically prepared for a particular schema, a particular event that's going to play out in your future that you fated to face, without knowing that it's happening while it is happening, right? So some psychological preparation you can only see in the rearview mirror, that you're sort of being rolled out on the red carpet towards a particular event or outcome, and you've actually been prepared to handle it in a certain way without you actually knowing it, right? Of course, you can also have different psychological preparation where you know that you are changing and you start feeling yourself changing and your identity changing and your motives changing. Also, the fact that family members can't attend funerals these days may mean there is a perceived sense that there's no longer as much opportunity to be interrogated by one's own family when something strange happens. This might have been learned from these events in early May, the funeral of Candace's father. Speaking more generally, Ken's death may have altered Candace's status in some way. Perhaps she stood to inherit something, and if so, possibly Donald stood or still stands to gain something indirectly. And bear in mind, this is quite a deprived family, so even a small inheritance, even a small contribution would probably mean quite a lot at this point. The same may even apply to Candace Sr. Do ex-wives often inherit from their deceased ex-husbands? No, but maybe she could have gotten something indirectly. Bear in mind, she lives with Candace. Then another aspect, any death in a family of a parent, especially a patriarch, is likely to stimulate feelings of stress and anxiety. And how would someone like Candace typically deal with smoothing over those feelings? The recent death of her father would probably bring all sorts of memories streaming back to the surface, including of her own childhood. How would she deal with that? It's also interesting that the events in May, Candace's father's death, aren't visible on Candace's otherwise accessible Facebook. Neither are they on her mother's. Deliberate or accidental? What do you think? Now, in terms of the third aspect, intertextualities, just a few observations. Firstly, I found it interesting that Candace has reverted to her maiden name during the current circumstances, Candace Bly. Kate McCann did the same thing early on during Madeleine McCann's disappearance, preferring to be referred to as Kate Healy. In fact, she was so consistent in that when the detective Gonzalo Amaral wrote a book about her, that's how he referred to her, as Kate Healy. One wonders whether that was her choice or her husband's, both in the Madeleine McCann case and also in the disappearance of Summer Wells. Secondly, in the Patrick Frazee case, the siblings were bickering about their inheritance of their recently departed father. I think he was also in the military when Kelsey Bereth went missing. Frazee, perhaps in anticipation of his father's imminent demise, took out I think it was a $72,000 loan, and it matured roughly around the time that Kelsey disappeared. Thirdly, in the Scott Peterson case, Lacey also inherited jewelry and some money from her grandmother, and once Lacey disappeared, Scott basically inherited that and other things from her. I don't think quite the same dynamics are pertinent here, unless Ken left Candace's portion of her inheritance to his grandchildren instead of her. I do think family members will be in a far better position to speculate about family dynamics than anyone else. But where are they? Once again, I want to thank someone on Patreon for passing on this information. Thanks very much, Gillian. So I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.